coming to this chat, informal discussion about funding. This is not, it's not a lecture. I am definitely not an expert. So it's really helpful to have a two-way conversation. And as Fran suggested, ask questions as we go along, if anything's not clear. But also at the end, we can have time for more questions if you like. So I will. I'm also not brilliant at PowerPoint. Yay, okay. So who am I? I am grandly calling myself LJ Hope Productions, and LJ Hope Productions is me. I am a sole trader. That's my trading persona, if you like. And I call myself a creative producer because the word producer, well, let me ask you, what do you think a producer does? Yeah, so what does that kind of bring to mind for you? Okay.
Music,
Okay, that's interesting. So I'll tell you, sorry. Maker, yeah.
Produce.
Yep. Enabler is something that I think is a good description. So in terms of what I do specifically, there are two, as explaining to James, there are sort of two aspects to what I do. One is if I have an idea to do something that I want to bring to fruition, like True Stories Live, or like a group that I run called Tilted Women, I try and get a partner, at least one partner, as in a venue or an arts organisation, to help me realise that. I try and get funding. If it's something that I am not going to be the public-facing performing bit of it, then try and engage those people, and then make it happen. Design the event, make it happen. Sell some tickets, get some people interested, get some people to come. So there's that. That's kind of one aspect of it, and that's probably the more creative bit of it. The other aspect for me is mainly in theatre. So sorry, I don't know loads about film or music production, but mostly in theatre, where either I, as LJ Hope Productions, am very much the centre of the whirlwind that is a theatre production, and I get in all the money, I get in all the people, whatever the team might look like. Do we need a lighting designer? We obviously need a director, we need some actors, we need some venues, we need people to come, we need people to enjoy what we're doing, we need to sell tickets, we need people to know about it, so that if we're doing a first run of something and they miss it, they'll know about it next time. And also documenting it, which is where I work with filmmakers sometimes to make sure that we've got really good social media assets that we can, take, that we've got something when another venue for a later tour wants to see what we've done. I've got a good film of it. So so I do that with some productions. Other productions, the person, the artist, the performer, the writer is the one who makes the main funding application, and I kind of manage it for them, or almost sort of mentor them through it, so that we're a co-production team more than a one production team. So yeah, kind of being the centre point of all of this is how I see myself, or being on a tiny disc balancing on a ball with 10 plates on sticks doing. That is another visual image that I have of myself at times. So that's what I do. As you've been coming in, I've just been kind of talking to you about who you are and what you do. We seem to have a multitude of third-year fine arts students. Is that right? So, Noreen, where are you at?
I graduated from fashion comms, but now I do more fine arts. But I graduated in 2022.
Okay, fantastic. And you're all Norwich-based, and you've all kind of stayed here so far. Fantastic. And kind of the next thing really is, what do you want to do? What's your driving passion in an ideal world? If, I call it the rainbow pony scenario. What's your rainbow pony?
Make art, solve somehow, some way, someone. Have to do.
Yep. And yeah, is that for everybody? Do you have a specific way that you want to sell art? Do you have a specific kind of thought in mind of what that might look like?
I do. I think I have quite but I want, I think I have my ideal situation is I want to have family, but I want to have my own, like, business in a way, selling my art. So when I say somehow solve, it's like ideally you want to get to a point where I have representation somehow, because I feel like that's the biggest headache for me nowadays. So my ideal situation is always just, I want to get to a point where, not guaranteed, but it's like, let me make an art piece and know that it's probably going to sell and just, so there's a lot less every day thinking about emailing stuff, pressure.
Yep.
Be able to afford an accountant.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, they're kind of necessary.
For me, it's less about probably selling it and I'll make it whether it sells or not. And it's possibly sort of the communal aspect that I think I'm going to miss most when I leave uni. And there are, obviously as a mature student, I'm from Norwich, which is difficult to commute anywhere else from here. There are different organisations in Norwich, like the Contemporary Art Society, but they're quite traditional and long established and elderly. And so I think sometimes it's difficult because they've always done it that way, and it's difficult to go into a group like that and do something a bit different. So it would be really nice, to access funding to be able to set up
To give you agency.
exhibitions and what have you. So you create a new community of people who are perhaps a bit more forward-looking. And I don't mean any disrespect for the existing groups. I'm a student member of them, and before that I have access, talks and things that they do, and they do a fantastic job. But it is, and this is me, there's not often I go into rooms and I feel youthful, and I have to say, into some of them, you do realise that for younger, emerging artists, there is the opportunities, and also for mature students like myself, we sit outside the opportunities for the young, emerging category, which normally sort of ends about 25.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit of a wilderness.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, definitely, because some of the things I mentioned kind of are that 18 or 16 to 25 year group, age band. So that's a really good point. But I think, for me, I kind of joke that I'm probably unemployable, so I have to be self-employed. So, but it does give me agency. There are lots of downsides to it, like not having a day off until the end of July. But but I think for quite a lot of people that's quite a driving thing. But we don't exist in a country that recognises the value of art and artists so well, and certainly you can't kind of go to the state and say, hey, I'm an artist, support me. It just doesn't work like that. I came to doing this pretty much by accident. True Stories Live was the kind of the first proper big-ish project that I started producing, and I didn't really know that that was what I was doing when I was doing it, when I started off, which is why there are so many different sorts of producers and so many different sorts of ways of getting funding, of making things happen. My initial training a long time ago was as a lawyer, so that was quite helpful in some ways. But again, it's one of those things where, you know, a couple of you are mature students, you never quite know what life is going to bring and what direction you're going to end up in. So whatever you may think at the moment about how you see your progression going, you know, absolutely nothing is fixed, and particularly with art and the creative industries. So, yeah. So that's my kind of, you know, introduction to me and how I got here. Have any of you had any experience of getting funding for anything to date? Do you want to just? Do you want to just say a couple of sentences about that?
Well, I'm not unfamiliar to this. You know. I've done many application funding, many unresponded. Lord knows if they ever respond to me, but so many. I think one of my most proud ones, to be fair, was I applied. Really, it's a charity. It's for I guess underprivileged families and things like that. No one's allowed to judge me. The thing is, I've learned through these applications that the sadder your story is, the more likely they are to read it or acknowledge it. So it was funny in uni where I needed, for my final project, it wasn't a lot of money I needed, but you know how small things add up? So it's like, oh, I need a backdrop, but now I've got 3 backdrops, and that's 100 and something pounds. And so I ended up needing about, I think, 800 or 900 pounds, and I was like, where is that coming from? So when that application, where I saw their funding initially was, they were like, oh, if you want school uniforms for kids and whatnot. And I don't know, when you get random adverts, so I have a daughter, so I think it just came up. So when I read it, it kind of was like students, and I was like, the thing is, students, and I have a child, it's just, but I decided to like, kind of just see how it went. So I emailed them. I think I told them my application was for one thing, but then when I submitted it, like I had laid out pretty much all the cost of everything I need, why I need it, why I can't afford it. Like I just kind of made them like a storybook of reasons to give me money, and it worked. So it was good, but it was a long process, and you know, like that one I guess is different because it was in Norwich, so I could go to the place and there was kind of a reference point, whereas online it's just and you email them and then you just inevitably wait and it can get depressing. So
Well done. You did it. You know, you had a need, you found the resource, and you did it. So well done. Well done.
And it was in the role of friends group for local park, and it was trying to, even it's owned by city council, so they had no money for anything, and we were trying to improve the facilities in the park, so I successfully raised money for things like picnic benches.
Nice. Yeah, brilliant.
Accessing grants from places like supermarkets. And council's own, they have a pot of money that you can apply for, which seems a bit mad when they're the owner of the park.
Yeah. Oh, well done. Well done. Those are all, again, you know, that illustrates actually the breadth of the potential pots that are out there. So I'll do the teachery thing of the aims for today. So I'm just going to talk about some sources of funding that I know about, given my context, which won't necessarily be the same as yours. As I said, answer questions, ask me questions as we go along. And I wish I had, you know, the magic solution to everything, and, you know, what you have to write to get that tick and get that yes, but unfortunately I don't. I don't have a magic money tree, none of that stuff. What I'm not going to do is go through a specific funding application or do a form, but I know that Fran and Sophie are going to do some more practical exercises afterwards. I'm just going to kind of go, here's some thoughts, here's some ideas. So does that sound all right? Cool. Okay. So when I'm thinking about funding something, the key, and it's so easy to lose sight of the moment you get into admin, is to be really, really clear about your idea. You know, have that as a kind of central, your light bulb moment, you know, and try not to lose sight of that. Try not to lose sight of that, and also, as I said before, your passion, because there is always so much admin involved in this, and it can be overwhelming, it can be quite draining. So just try and, you know, whatever visual reference you need, try and remember that there is still a thing at the centre of all of this. There is still your art, there is still your practice, there is still your passion. And then I try and think about, well, what do I want to achieve? Okay, so I want to make the most amazing theatre show that lots of people are going to come and see, and they're going to have a better understanding of the climate crisis, or a better understanding of the mental health system, and I want people to have the chance to talk about it, because that's what really helps us as human beings, and that is one of the many values of art and culture. Why do I need funding? Is there a way of doing this that doesn't involve me filling in another one of those forms and making an application? Are there ways of doing it that are a bit more under the radar? Is the idea so great that people are going to buy loads of tickets for it, or they're going to buy my merch, or they're going to subscribe to something online? So, you know, kind of have a think about, do I really need funding? Is there a gap I can't fill purely from my thing? Quite a technical thing to think about is who is applying. Am I applying as LJ Hope Productions? Am I helping Norwich Arts Centre apply for something? Am I helping my colleague Chloe apply for something because I think she's an amazing writer and I want her to succeed? So that's also, I know it sounds like a really obvious question, well, you know, of course it's me, but actually there could be other ways of doing it. You could help somebody else who's maybe already got a track record with a particular funder or a funding institution. You know, that's often something to think about, and to think about who's the best team to get together. So that's why I put down the next point about, are you applying as an individual? Are a group of you going to make a partnership? Or are you going to help an organisation? So True Stories Live, it started with, I had this idea because I'd heard about the moth, which is a thing that happens in America. And so we ended up forming a partnership with me, LJ Hope Productions, and Molly Naylor, who's a poet and performer. And so the three of us, literally 2 sides of A4 partnership agreement, called ourselves True Stories Live. And with that became kind of a thing that we could, as that entity, apply to the Arts Council for funding. So, you know, it could well be, not least because it's a lonely place, being a sole practitioner, to form a partnership, to form a group of you, as long as you all share that mission, that your values, your passion, your drive. And in that way you can bring different strengths to what you're doing. A writer that I work with quite a lot, who's a good friend, but we've done quite a few plays that I've produced, and our method for writing funding applications is we set aside a day, usually we've each done some preliminary work, and we just sit across the table, 2 laptops, and we just go, right, you do that bit, I'll do that bit. And that's actually quite a nice way of doing things, and you've immediately got some feedback on stuff, and you've immediately got emotional support and somebody to take it in turns to make the tea, or whatever it needs. I always prefer to work in a team. I always prefer to collaborate. So, you know, it doesn't need to be a lonely place if you're trying to get funding for things. The other kind of golden rule that I try to have for me is don't lose sight of the idea. Don't think, the Wellcome Foundation need an installation about soil, so I'm going to go for that fund because it's £500,000, and yeah, I could do with £500,000 right at this moment. If that's not your bag, then, you know, don't go for it. Therein lies misery if you're trying to scram what is your passion and love into an idea, into a pot that it doesn't really fit. So, and it, you know, the number of times when I've been looking at a bulletin or something, and you know, my radar's gone, oh great, that looks fantastic, but it's nothing to do with what I do. So, you know, and it may take like a day or two to have that realization, but you know, again, try and hold on to that. What I haven't talked about, is the general funding context. I alluded to that earlier, which is, and this does make me sad and angry, the number of times, the number of public meetings, the number of occasions where you still have to be really stressed that being creative, taking part in arts and cultural activities, all of those things, there are 1,000,000,001 studies that show how good it is for us as human beings to do those things. And yet still you will meet opposition to, well, you know, real life is here and art is over there, and why should it get any funding? With some charities, I won't mention any names, but the local charities, you know, I've written nice letters and I've said da, 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 and they've asked for more information, they've asked for more data, and I've probably spent quite a lot of time just kind of explaining stuff, and then they'll turn around and say, oh, well, no, we're just dealing with issues of poverty and we're going to fund food banks, which is absolutely fine and you know, understood, but the number of times one has to go through those hoops and explain again and again and again that actually what you're doing is important and valuable. And all of the economic arguments are there. You can find reports to back everything up to say that the number one thing that employers look for in employees is creativity. It's not maths GCSE, you know, that is the number one thing. The creative industries are the fastest growing contributor to GDP. You know, it's all there, all that hard stuff is out there, and all the soft stuff is out there, so-called soft stuff about well-being. So that's just something to bear in mind. Had supper with some friends last night, and they're artists. They'd just come from having a meeting with a potential funder and they've gone through lots of hoops, provide lots of data, and at the end of it, they were told that that particular charity didn't want to fund lifestyle choices. Exactly. It's like, yeah, you do this because it's just a bit of fun, and you know. So I don't want to depress you, but it's always good to know that these reports are out there and that you can draw on the stuff that some funders really want to see, which is the data and the references and the key quotes.
So organisations that you're applying to, do they not have an indication of what they will and won't allow in terms of what the money's released for? Because some, I know, you have to be a charity, don't you?
Yeah,
Registered
absolutely.
charity to access some funding and what have you. So whether there's actually clarity, because you sound like you're doing a huge amount of work, which if someone told you at the beginning would have saved you an awful lot of...
Well, this was, it was to apply for not a large amount, and it was a kind of, do send me a letter and we'll kind of think about it without, clear guidelines, which is, yeah.